Good morning. You are watching Issues at Hand here on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Tumuheri Bruno. Edgar, thank you for joining us for this Tuesday edition. Now, of course, as usual, Issues at Hand is proudly brought to you by Protea Hotel in Tebe, where you can get yourself the best in amenities like a spa, a gym, nice conference halls, hotel rooms, and it's easy. Just call the number on your screen and make a reservation and booking today so that you do not miss out on all these that are available for you. It's a lovely place, it's a beautiful place, it's a wonderful place, and you will not regret making that call. So make the call this morning. Now, we've seen a spate of unfortunate incidents, if I may call them that, happen over the past couple of weeks as a result of gun violence. The late minister who was unfortunately gunned down by his bodyguard. Then we saw the killing of a social media blogger, and now we have seen the killing of a businessman here in Kampala by a security officer. And it raises a lot of questions on why gun violence has become a big issue over the past couple of weeks and over the past couple of months here in Uganda, which is a problem we never used to have. But is there something we need to pay attention to when it comes to gun violence? And it's very important that we talk about this issue and we find a solution to this problem. Now, to tackle this issue with me this morning, I have Mr. Fred Egesa, who is a security analyst, and we are going to talk about why murder cases, especially when it comes to gun violence, are in the rise in Uganda and what can be done about them to change that situation. Welcome to Issues at Hand this morning.
Good morning, Uganda. Good morning, Church of Uganda TV. Hearing about it for the first time, incidentally, but I'm happy that I'm here. Of course, I bear the same background, so at least I feel good that I've come here. Yeah.
Indeed, and you are very welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself and what is it that you do?
Well, my name is Freddie David Egesa. I don't know why people take away the David, but I'm David. Of course, I would call myself an investigator. I have a security background, but I'd love to call myself a private investigator because I authored private investigation in this country in 1994 after several trainings, and I've been at it for all the years. So I'm I would call myself a domestic security expert. You know, there's a difference. A domestic security deals with the in-house interior security, which kind of for stabilization and handling crimes here and there, homicides, frauds, and so many other cases. Then we have the external, that is the guys who got fight. So investigation, ours is to stabilize, as others are defending. Yeah.
Indeed. And so with that background and with what you do, what is your take on the recent spate of murder cases we have seen, especially as a result of gun violence?
Yeah, thank you so much. We are supposed to, let me kind of create a picture, let me paint a picture of what is happening in the world. Maybe I'll look at what is like in America. It's just United States of America. In 2021, they had 480, I think 82, 48,000 cases of murder. That if you are to go by day, that means they almost had something like maybe 100 cases of gun murder. And of course, these are combined with suicide and then homicide or killing another person or murdering another person. Now you can see the extent to which a gun, and these were gun-related murders, leave alone other murders, maybe by machetes, by longos, by poisoning, but just gun-related cases reached at an extent that they are losing 100 people in America every day. So guns are tools, but guns are also weapons. The same way any tool can be a weapon. Someone can use a kitchen knife to kill, someone can use a pestle to kill, someone can use a stone to kill. Human beings are designed in such a way that they are very, very complex mammals. They are the type of mammals that can access weapons. I've seen the few monkeys that live around human surroundings can also adopt the behavior of using tools like stones, sticks, but I think the human beings are much more advanced in this. They know how to use, like most especially if they pick anger or if they pick confusion, they can easily get weapons and use them against others or even use them on themselves. So guns, that's the history about guns. Yes, we should say, we are not saying that since America is there, we should go there, because it is not an advantage, it's a disadvantage that guns are turning out to take lives. And what do we say here? We're saying that, can we do, Americans thought that every American should have a gun. In fact, the gun population in America is so high that they may even not easily know who has what. In America, you find a person with 6 guns, one person. In America, once you're 18, you are allowed to have a weapon. In America, guns are it's like any other hankies. In fact, they have less hankies than guns. Now, in the process, the guns, a gun is a tickling thing. Someone has to, even if you're doing nothing with it, you may end up scratching it and then you may let a bullet off. Meaning that is a kind of an exciting tool that a man would love to play around with. So wherever there is a gun, there is a percentage of insecurity, even on the holder. We are saying that every gun poses, that's scientifically, every gun poses poses a danger, a percentage of danger to the beholder, to the level of 35%. Meaning that even as you're holding a gun, you can attract attention, you can attract trouble. You may not run away from trouble because you believe you have a gun. You may cause trouble and eventually you end up being incarcerated. Meaning that a gun, the philosophy of a gun is beyond just holding it and cocking it and maybe discharging a bullet. Yes.
Indeed. And so with that nature, and you've explained in the case of United States, and that's why some may be saying, okay, with that, the number of guns that are in the market there, you can understand why there are rogue cases and these are people who own guns who carry out these murders. But when it comes to Uganda, we are seeing that in a country where it's not a constitutional right to acquire or own a gun, and there's not much. There are not many guns on the market in the population. So when it comes to the recent incidences, like I've said, we are seeing security personnel, the people who are employed to protect lives and using this tool of a gun, are the ones who are carrying out these unfortunate murders on unsuspecting civilians. So what is the cause of this, and how is it a big cause for concern, especially when it comes to our security agencies and security officers in this country?
Thank you so much. Of course, most of these cases are isolated cases. Most of the cases are distant from each other. They are not a kind of a conspiracy. They are not a plan. They are not a design. They are not a situation whereby a team of people are sitting to say that let's kill Ugandans. But at the same time, we have that area like where the Ichuri murder, where the Chirumira murder, the Kawesi murder, all those other murders possible which have not been solved or where we even don't seem to have suspects. Those are now much more organized crimes. But then we come to where we see, because there we may not even know which weapons are being used. It could be that they are from state agents, but we cannot we cannot raise that without a hinge of doubt. But at the same time, we are very sure that people can access guns. Uganda has been at war, and I'm very sure that a gun is a very, very kind of like I said, it's a tool, but that can be kept for many years without getting spoiled or getting mechanical problems. Once it is oiled and kept, it will be there. So we have had wars. We have had wars since 1966, when I was just a few years old, and now I'm approaching 70. So we have had several wars. We have several juntas. We have had several takeovers and many things. And besides that, we are surrounded by an area. We are surrounded by countries that are almost still at war. If you talk about Congo, if you talk about Southern Sudan, now Northern Sudan has also come in. So, and besides, you look at our borders. Our borders are just like you walk from one bush to the other. Sometimes even others, we join the same bush. You are in the same bush. In the same bush you are in Uganda, and the same bush you are in Kenya. In the same bush you are in Uganda, and you are in Sudan. In the same bush you are in Congo, and you can just take one straight and you are in Uganda. So our borders are porous, meaning that accessibility. If these guns, by osmosis, these guns can easily enter this country, and once they are here, then they land into all sorts of hands. And but because we have had the gun phobia, because of the war, this kind of mentality, people look at guns as a means of power. People look at guns as a means of wealth. And nobody has bothered possibly to politicize us about saying that no, guns can be as destructive. So in the process, you find that there are many people keeping guns in their own homes. Some of them have even not for the bad intentions, but they believe that if you have a gun, then you are very safe, not knowing that a gun has its own problems. So in the process, that's why you see that though we don't have shops that sell guns, but the conditions of getting guns into Uganda are so open that the incursion of weapons cannot be easily controlled or even monitored or even managed. So in the process, it is hard. Like, we have had wars. We have the borders that are not managed well because possibly we don't even have capacity to do that. We have also had a situation of the way we solve our own problems. Because some people have guns, and even illegal guns, and they have not used them. But when a situation arises, maybe a land dispute comes in, maybe a conflict comes in, maybe a social problem comes in, they're very likely to fall back to the weapons and misuse them.
Now, let's get right into that, because, again, like I mentioned, when it comes to Uganda, a gun is not a normal thing to have, especially across the population. So enlighten us, what does the law say about gun availability here in this country? Who is supposed to hold a gun? And specifically, when it comes to security personnel, what are the rules and regulations about how security personnel should handle having a gun? There is a category called members of the armed forces. That is the army, that is the Uganda police, that's Uganda prisons, and then in that area, then we have what we call the private security. Now, private security is armed under the Police Act. They're allowed to use arms to guard homes, to guard factories, to guard premises. That's also another section, but it's under the police. So then also we have the Civilian Firearms Act. The civilians can be armed also. The civilian can be allowed, and still under the police, to have an arm. He can request for and is licensed to have an arm. And through research, you'll find that guns in possession of civilians are not a big problem in Uganda, unless maybe if they use them and they're not caught. But at least there's consistency. The people who have had guns, very few have used them in bars, very few have used them, but of course, sometimes others become show-offs. They just believe that they want to, like maybe in a simple road kind of fracas, someone pulls up a gun, pulls it from one side to the other side to indicate that, please, go slow with me, I'm armed. They use it like a messenger to indicate what they are, but the misuse has been on the minimal. Now, in this, what we're discussing today, what we're looking at, has been the misuse of guns by the authorized armed forces, and it cuts across. We have not had a prison officer
By the way, prisons officers are a bit exonerated out of this.
Why is that?
I think because of their intensive training, possibly because they are deeply trained around humanities. They are not much more operational. They are specific on which people to deal with. Their work is easier than that of police. Their work is easier than that of the army. They are not operational. But if you're going to talk about ISO, ESO, we're going to talk about CMI, we're going to talk about these operational forces and the police, you find that they always come into engagements. They also come into confrontations, they also come into fracasses, whereby to a certain extent they may have to use the service arms for purposes of defending themselves or dealing with the situation. So that's why you see that eventually, sometimes they abuse. Others, they are mistakes. But now the cases we had to this week, possibly this month, we cannot take them as these were abuses. Someone gets a gun, he's annoyed, and in the process he discharges. Now, when you look at the mind of Sabit, the soldier, there are many stories. They talk about he didn't have money or wanted money and so many things. Then others will tell you, no, this man, at one time he had deserted. I don't know how far true that could be, but if he deserted, then he was punished and brought back. Now, I think that's where the problem starts. If a person deserts, he's trying to demonstrate that I'm no longer interested. And what may be the sources of desertion? Sometimes we have had forces serving outside our countries, and when they are there, the payments and the situation, the conditions are a bit more brighter. They get money in dollars, they get maybe much more than they would get here. So but because they are on external service, so by the time they come here, they may fail to fit in because they could have been exposed to a certain situation of life.
A certain standard.
Yes, some standard. So now when they come to they try to fit in and fails. What they do, sometimes they try desertion. Some have succeeded, others have succeeded and even gone back to countries like Iraq as guards, local guards, and still go to get that command. But others who fail and they are pushed back, they to a certain extent become a time bomb because they are disgruntled, they believe that they are being cheated. And you could have heard about Tanzania. Tanzania had a very nice force, very disciplined, but very naive. They didn't know about riches. They know that the person owns 2 radios. They know that the person owns TVs. In fact, I'm made to understand that when they went back, they became a sort of a problem because they realized that the person can live outside Ujamaa. Under Ujamaa, they believed that all they had was the best. When they got exposure, they became a problem. That is very normal with forces. Now, when we go to the policeman, we're seeing a situation whereby the allegations, this information, of course, we have not looked at documents, but the police say this man had a mental problem, and others say by 2017 he was literally on ropes because of a mental condition. So literally, before you can say so much, even when you take him to court, it will be a case of diminishing responsibility, because a mad person always. If you go to study in criminalistics, we say a mad person possesses 2 centers of decision with one brain. One brain has 2 centers. He will remember his mother, he will remember his children, he will remember he has to eat, but sometimes he may even, I've seen mad people even eating results, because somehow the head is now very confused. So we may have to ask ourselves, when he got annoyed, which head took a decision? Which center of decision took a decision? Now, to avoid all that, possibly, that's why you see that His Excellency was very furious about that case. He said, but how could you keep a man in that condition? Because literally we cannot fully now over blame, if at all, the man was mentally ill, meaning that he has kind of impaired decision making or impaired capacity to contain anger. He will pick anger like any other person, but the capacity to contain it becomes a bit of an academic discussion.
Does that show that when it comes to security agencies, there's a lack of emphasis on the mental welfare of those in service?
I wouldn't term it to be like a lack of emphasis, but I can see this as a very serious oversight. It's a very serious oversight, especially to those who came to know that that office, that person had such a problem, because they would have discharged him and possibly either, I don't know where they would have sent him, maybe in an area, but where would you? How can you do policing? You're in full uniform, and then you do not have the guns are very far away from you, because police and guns are very close. It is almost like it's a means of service. That's why I say guns held by policemen are not weapons. We call them service guns. They are guns to help you serve the nation. So how will you keep away that man that he will not at one time come across an operation where he will access a gun? So it becomes like that. Like I said, it becomes an academic discussion.
Now, I speak of emphasis, especially when it comes to the question of prioritizing mental health and mental follow-up of the mental health of those in service, because like you've just said, just at the very minimum, many of them go through a lot of mental stresses because of the nature of their work, whether it's army officers or whether it's police officers, and there is the need, therefore, to consistently follow up with their mental welfare where their head is at, because even with what they go through, they have to continue in service. Now, that's something that looks to be lacking. Like you said, there's an oversight, and so is there the need for more efforts to ensure that they have the right psychiatric follow-up when it comes to their mental health, so that they can cope with the stresses of their difficult work environment.
Let's try to understand the life of a policeman. A policeman, more especially a constable, may be getting, if he is getting a lot of money, gets like 600,000. That may be even on the upper side. At the same time, let's look at his day-to-day work. He's supposed to, like, especially at his level, this is a man who can be on 9-9 the whole day. Then they tell him, don't move, we have special duty. That means that he stretches his working hours into other hours. Besides that, this person, he picks dead bodies on the road. He engages robbers, possibly shoots someone who is shot, or is shot at, or a colleague is shot at in crossfire, and then he's picking dead bodies of cases of homicide, and all this, whatever you do in investigation, that's what you say. Whichever case you do, which is so touching, more special about murder, leaves a certain kind of soot on your brain. It leaves a certain memory on your brain. That's why sometimes you're allowed to do a few cases, then you will relax a bit for about a year, then you go back at it. More special, we who have been doing homicide. Because, a life that has been taken is the same life you are carrying. So in the process, there is a soot, we call it a soot of, some kind of soot that remains on your brain as in memory. So all this may be the catalysts of a mental situation. But of course, the police program will tell you that we don't have, it is not our duty, it is the Ministry of Health to have come up with an overall design, or even Parliament to think about it, because even the Inspector General of Police is limited. That's not his area. All what he has to say is raise issues of saying, you guys, my boys sometimes get this problem or the other. Then government has to come in and plan and say, okay, this period of time, police officers should be subjected to a kind of a mental test, and then qualified or disqualified or helped or counseled, depending on the recommendations of whoever, of the specialist. So what we are saying here is that it's not only in police. You have had drivers saying the same. Say a driver may say, I would rather bash my boss on a truck. I would rather drive him into a river if I believe things are not working. Of course, we are living in a very stressful country where salaries are small and minimal just because of the collection back. We are in a third world country, and we may not solve all these problems at the same time. But all the same, that does not stop us from being responsible. That does not stop us from following matters as they come in. A policeman, sometimes, some of them don't even go home for a long time. And what has made it worse now is a situation that all policemen, unlike maybe in our times, they move with phones. So the other ones of our years, you would not get the stress at home because you don't have a phone. These ones, whatever happens in your house, you pick the stress. If the wife is running around with a man, you will know. If your children have not had a meal, you will know. If they have been chased out of school, you will know. So the stress built up is different. So that's why I say that if we're not very careful, we're going to see a lot of outbursts of mental disorders, because of the working, even the working conditions are not the best. But of course, that's what so far what the government can offer. Yes.
All right. And then, in light of this, what then is the way forward? Because like you said, some incidences might be a coincidence, but now we are starting to see a trend, and it's a very dangerous trend indeed. So the question is, what is the way forward? What should the relevant stakeholders, the security agencies, the likes of Parliament and the ministries that are stakeholders in this do to prevent gun violence escalating, especially when it comes to security officers?
Thank you so much. This matter is now automatic. It's going to work automatically. Why? Because the people under threat are the VIPs, and they are the decision makers. I've seen the TikTokers. The younger people have started a lot of games about. You see someone calling someone at home and say, please give the guard the baby's milk. Make sure he eats meat. Make sure. It's a kind of a gimmick, yes, but at least we are doing. The people who are supposed to organize this country is Parliament and then Cabinet and those who are in power, and they are the people being guarded. And I'm very sure that because of what's happening now, few even sleep well. Of course, it's not the best way.
The question there now is, of course, there's been a lot of talk on how VIPs treat their bodyguards. But if a VIP is not safe, how about the common man? What should the common people, like the businessman who passed away, unfortunately do?
A common man may be safe for one reason, because a common man does not rely on his God, he relies on his God. Definitely in Uganda, I think we should do more prayers than thinking even being dependent on security personnel, because there's a lot lacking within the design and build up and programs. You see, there are times when villages sleep without even one patrol vehicle, and somehow somewhere the Lord brings it to the morning. But at the same time, I think yes, nobody is safe. This is the message. Even that one carrying 10 guns, the 10 soldiers, that one being guarded, the message is you are not safe. Meaning that all of us should wake up to work and then work out solutions to see that we take security as an issue, and we even know that people giving us this kind of protection are human beings, and around the budgets. Leave on the budgets. Even the use of the money allotted to security should be seriously followed up, because I think security has the biggest budget. But somehow, somewhere, does it interpret into use? Does the local person, the very local guard, also benefit? Or this money is eaten around some areas, or it is shared around some area, and these boys who sleep out, being bitten by mosquitoes, walk in the mud, will not rest for 24 hours. Do they get that little money that has been allotted to them? Or when you look at it, can we fit into their lives? They have families, like all of us. They are parents, they take children to school, but you'll be so surprised that they take children in the same schools where we take our children. But a whole month, a man gets 600,000. So how does it juggle it out? I've always said this. Parliament knows that police should steal to survive. Are you surprised?
A bit.
Yes, Parliament knows that the policeman should steal to survive. Because just look at their budget. Put across 600,000 if a man wants 2 children. And then, okay, let him go to Bonabasome. But what about meals? You are telling this man that you should survive on 20,000 shillings a day. Of that 20,000, you should buy clothing for your children. You should make sure they have beddings. You should make sure they have food. They have sauce. You should make sure you use that for transport. Many of them don't have houses because we don't have housing estates worth the name for our officers, and they compete with us. Renting here and there. So how do they fit their life into that small money? Now that's why you had the president saying that allowances should stop. But maybe my opinion would be we may not stop the allowances, but let them be channeled to the account so that there's no petty money, petty cash that moves around. Because 10,000. Because this man, you're dealing with a very poor officer, may trigger a man to kill so many people just because his superior has maybe confiscated it.
No, but also on that's where the problem maybe lies, because while I appreciate the fact that security is something that's prioritized in this country to a very large extent, when you hear the president come out to say, you know what, let's be patriotic, let's work for little or no pay. I mean, how does that now help solve this problem, like you've just said, of a security personnel who doesn't have enough to live on for him and for his family?
Of course, with due respect to His Excellency, I will not buy into saying let's be patriotic. Yes, we can. We should be patriotic, but at the same time, let's possibly push that bar of fairness across. That I know there are many ways through which government can enhance the living standards of officers, like more especially in the police. Say, like if he gave them duty-free shops so they don't compete with us, if he allowed them possibly, if he put up schools where they can take their children, and then a few incentives here and there, so that they appear to have some kind of favor in one way or the other. Because to a certain extent, this man, you look at his way, he carries a gun, he's in the cold, he doesn't see his children, he doesn't see his family, but at the same time, even after putting his life online, he cannot survive beyond the margin of survival. That has to be an issue we have to deal with. I'm very sure that nobody will have we cannot have volunteer soldiers. We cannot have volunteer police officers. They do come to serve, but they also come to earn. We should balance how much they earn, and we should make sure that the little that's allotted to them is got without even one coin being removed. Otherwise, even as you know, corruption, I'm happy these days that the president is now driving back into dealing with the corruption, because there is enough money allotted to security here. Of course, there may never be enough money in life, but that little money that can bring some bit of change and that some bit of comfort. But where is it? It is because of the way it's allotted and possibly used or misused. Now, in the process, we are dealing with officers who think and believe that their senior officers are not being fair to them. So in the process, that also can trigger mental distress and then reactions that were like what we're seeing now.
Indeed, and that's a very big cause for concern. But we hope that all parties involved are taking their part in ensuring that this issue is no more. So, Mr. Fred, what then, for instance, is the role of the legislation, the MPs, when it comes to the welfare of security personnel and this checking of the abuse of guns, especially when it comes to gun violence in this country?
Of course, they have a very big duty to legislate, to discuss. In every constituency, there are posts, there are police stations. They know the working conditions of policemen. In fact, by the way, several dignitaries add to the confusion of police work, because many of them are known to have worked in police and ask them to release even high-profile criminals, or else accuse them to their bosses, and some even have been reprimanded or punished. And besides that, how much does an MP get? I'm not saying that the policeman should get the amount the policeman gets, but could we also think about dealing with how they survive? because who should bring this up? I wouldn't say police bring this up. Police cannot go into, they cannot sit down because that will be mutiny. So how should we help them express what they feel? Because we have tied them up, police and prisons even lack a representation in parliament. So who comes up and airs out what they feel? Meaning that they are a gagged team of people who are expected to perform. Now, I think they're trying to talk back to the nation, they're trying to talk back to the country, they're trying to talk back to government, but in an unorthodox way, just because they've been gagged. How can we open up discussions? Are there some closed sessions where policemen are allowed to go and face these legislators and have a discussion and pour out what they feel? Do we have centers of stress relief that a person will go there and say what he wants to say and is taken as something important? Maybe if there's a coercion by an officer, if there's a coercion by a superior, if he has been cheated, if he has been unfairly transferred as punishment, there are many things that happen within the force, and that has to be, which has to be tapped out. So where is parliament? Why should parliament sleep?
And definitely we need that avenue, and we're going to continue to have this discussion here on issues at hand at Church of Uganda Family TV. So don't go anywhere, as we are going to get into now, apart from gun violence, we have other murders that are a result of other tools, and so we're going to find out how this can be stemmed as well in the country. Keep it locked as you're still watching Issues at Hand on Good Morning Family. Yes, you are still watching Issues at Hand here on Church of Uganda Family TV. Thank you for rejoining us once again. Issues at Hand is proudly brought to you by Protea Hotel Entebbe. The number is still on your screen. You can make a call so that you can reserve and make a booking so that you can enjoy the wonderful week or weekend at Protea Hotel Entebbe. Now, my guest, for those of you who have just joined, is Mr. Fred Egesa, who is a security analyst, and we're here to talk about the security question in this country, especially in light of the recent murders in the country. Now, as an expert when it comes to matters crime, we are seeing crime not just by shooting, but by other means, let's say theft, let's say crime by Butaimbwa, for example. We are seeing fraud, online crime rise here in this country, if you are to follow the report according to Uganda Police. So the question is, why is this, and how can this be curtailed? One, by government, by security forces, but also by the civilians, because of course crime is not just a matter of security personnel alone, but it's also a matter for the common man, if we might say, at home, who might be watching, or family members who might be watching as well.
Thank you so much. There are things, there are crimes that rise, that come with development. There are also crimes that come with the deterioration of state stability, state stability. Crime is almost like a devil. The Bible says where God is, even the devil lingers around. So you'll never literally wash away crime from any society. It's an evil we live with. But what we're trying to say is that why is crime on the increase? There are 2 or 3 reasons, and these are just points of discussion. One, that because we are advancing, so people have started feeling that they need more. People have started looking at value. Ugandans have understood the value. That's why I say this is the time when people have built more houses than ever. Of course, the population is also going high. You're seeing that every Ugandan wakes up and he wants to put up some kind of something that is impressive. People used not to live like that. People used to carry money in their bags and spend much of their time in bars. And now it's a very different way. People believe and feel that they should invest. People have also discovered that as much as the population is expanding, but the land, the country is not expanding. So it is that scramble for wealth. Now, in the scramble for wealth, you'll have issues like rising crime. as people try to create a balance of snatching whatever another person has, so that someone takes it for himself. So that's how crime comes up. And crime is like a monster. We say crime is a monster. It's like an animal. If you feed it well, it will pick stature, it will be strong, it will be active, it will also be there. But if you deny it, if you malnourish it, if you feed it poorly, it will still be, it will become malnourished, and it will become small. So crime, like I said, crime feeds on development. When there is a development, you have seen cyber development, and you can see cyber crime. You have seen other developments, and you see that one. We have advanced in war. We are a better country now on war science and weaponry. You have seen guns also coming up to be an issue. America is one of the biggest countries, and is also the biggest area where there are very many crimes. So it's like that balance will always be there. But what do we say here? One is that the police, more especially the police, because the duty to protect the country, the duty to protect the Ugandans and whatever they have is the reserve and is the mandate of the police, meaning that the police has to do well. But I think I've seen the police doing so much, a lot of good work, but at the same time there is that problem of possibly not counter investigating their own officers. Now, in a situation where you don't counter your own officers, you find that some officers who are enlisted officers will become very rich, because they'll take advantage of the officers. They'll be swayed to deals, and in the process you find that one policeman is building 3 houses at the same time. And of course, how does that happen? That means that he has to feed on crime, because if you will possibly close one eye to allow a crime to pass so that he takes advantage. Now, the government has capacity to counter on that. How do they do it? By building a relationship with the public. There should be a lot of feedback of information from the public to the police. Now, if the police does not create that rail of information flow from the public to the police, then you'll find that a lot of information is not picked from the ground and processed into intelligence. Now, without intelligence, you need all the guns we have in Uganda to counter a disorganized country. And you only need few guns to counter a country that has intelligence flow, which literally picks from the people to the public. So, there we're talking about trust. How can the government build trust? That people trust them, that people trust government, and they believe that when they tell something to government, the government will react without acting in a kind of an ultra-virus way. So how safe are Ugandans when they take good information to the police? Which policeman should be trusted? All these are questions which we have to answer. But at the same time, that does not stop the public, me and you, from being vigilant, from knowing your neighbor, from knowing who does not leave the village, who is in the village playing matatu, who is in the village playing pool the whole day, because there's no he's going to feed. He'll come and feed on you. He'll come and jump into your fence because he wants to earn. Who is taking marijuana in your village, and you're a village of very educated men, 100 or 200 men, but they're only about 7 young men who are literally feeding on you. And these, you don't bother to deal with the bed bugs. I'm not saying that you can't kill them. I'm saying that you don't bother to find means and ways of throwing such people out of your village, but you just say, no, since they have not attacked me, I'll not talk about them because they may come and retaliate. Yes, whether you do a criminal does not have friends. Whether you shield him, whether you greet him every morning, one day he'll attack, and he will attack you alone. So you'd rather get organized in a better way when you're many and attack him before he leaves his base to attack you.
All right. Now, in terms of increasing public trust, especially in our security agencies, Does the fact that many of these investigations go without giving us answers as to some of the crimes that have happened in the past, doesn't that hinder this trust that the public needs to have in our security agencies? Because many crimes have been happening, but we have not seen the results of these investigations.
Of course, I'll talk about this going by the very recent judgment given concerning the case of Chirumira, the former police officer. It was quite embarrassing that the judge made his own observations investigatively, which we couldn't see as investigators. Because for him, even he mentioned and said there are guys who came as witnesses, and to him they were suspects. A suspect is not a criminal. A suspect is someone who is being held in doubt. And then, too, there are times we have seen policemen, you know, sometimes I just don't like the way policemen react when there's an incident. They come, seal off the place which is okay, preserve the place which is okay, but they have never told people, like I was saying the Ichuri case, people were, you know, we should tell people, there should be a regulation that if you move, unless if you have coming to rescue someone in an incident, but once someone has died, like in the case of Ichuri, there was no reason why people had to surround the vehicle, come so close, kill the basic investigation. Because in the criminalistics we say, a criminal is always in a hurry that he leaves enough evidence at the scene. It can be an ID. Now, when there is no regulation of sins, someone will come and even pick what he has dropped. Someone will come and correct where the clue he would have left to be taken. Why don't you come up and say, listen, if you are found near a scene of crime, police has capacity to carry you as one of the suspects and possibly let you charge you even for disturbing a scene. Because a scene is a government property. A scene is a police property. What now? You run to go and say man has been killed and is in the vehicle, and you touch the vehicle. Why are you touching it unless if you are trying to conceal something? You know, if I had the authority, anybody who touches the vehicle and I find your prints or your feet around the scene, you are the first suspect. Whether you are 20 or 30, as a precedence, I would charge you. Because we should, if you're going to solve any problems here, we should have precedents of saying, listen, if there is a shooting, unless if you are rescuing a life that is possibly, and someone is still alive, there you can go in. Otherwise, keep 20 meters away, strictly. Now, so these are some of the areas where the police has not been strict. And then too, you find that most of the cases that involve investigations, you see the excitement, someone seals off a road for 5 days or 3 days, but I, as an investigator, know that after about 5 days, 5 hours, you are picking nothing. You are literally showing that you are working, but you are doing nothing. I know that. But yes, I see, you know, me, I hate drama. Someone has died and you come and you seal off roads for 2 days, you are inconveniencing people. That means that even you don't know what you're doing. So can we advance from that level to a better level? Second, lastly, in Uganda, we can make our own syllabuses of investigations because the brains are there. You run to America for a course of three months, you come back and you believe you know everything. These Americans may not know what we know. These Americans may not solve cases here. They are our friends. They are the trainers. Yes, but we can also train them. Because concerning crime in Africa, we are the experts. But now we jump away from our own seat of confidence and allow them to have it. So, they are the guys because they are whites, they know. No, being white doesn't mean that they know. It is experience, it is exposure, it is being at something for a very long time. And lastly, let's talk about specialization. If a policeman has been in a section for 3, 4, 5 years, let him continue in that. But you cannot pull him away from there, put him to traffic. He's in traffic 3 years, then you take him to guarding the banks, then from there to this and the other. So it becomes a jack of all trades and a master of none. That's why they are very, very young but very brilliant homicide officers whom we have lost to departments that are less demanding. They you put an officer who's been a deep investigator into traffic. I'm not saying that traffic is a lesser job, but it is also a specialty. A man has been a DPC up the RPC as a uniformed commander, and you take him to manage CID. He may not manage. Policing is a profession. It is not guesswork. Like you, if selling tomatoes is a profession, that you jump from matoke then tomatoes, you will fail. So can we create that kind of professionalism? Can we build that professionalism so that we don't deal with brains in particular areas, and we don't have that mix-up? That's why we are failing in cases.
That's true, and we hope that there will be specialization and better professionalism in all accounts, including even in areas of mental health when it comes to security agencies. And then we need a lot in terms of all stakeholders, participation from police, from army, from civilians, you and I, to ensure that our country is safe and secure. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but thank you so much, Mr. Fred Egesa, for discussing this serious issue. And most importantly, like he started with, we have to pray for our country to be safe, to be secure. Pray for those in the army, pray for those in police, but pray for your neighbor, for your family member, that even though we are all dealing with trials and tribulations, that God will give us a victory to overcome. He'll give us self-control, and he'll give us joy even in the midst of the storm, because the storm will come to an end. Thank you so much for joining us here on Issues at Hand. It has come to an end, but we shall return tomorrow. For now, enjoy the rest of your day. God richly bless you, and enjoy the programming here on Church of Uganda Family TV.